Well, it's a big welcome to Talking Hawks tonight. It's a big win. Daz, sorry, going back to old habits there. Daz,
That's all right, mate.
This is a big night tonight. What a win.
Mate, what a win. It's all I've been saying for 2 days. It's extraordinary. I think I've checked the scores about 15 times just to make sure we won. We absolutely did. And it was fantastic. And I'm looking forward to getting stuck into it, not only with you, but with the loyal listeners that are out there, loyal watchers as well. And fingers crossed they jump in all night tonight and we can get stuck into it. But there is an overwhelming sense of optimism, which is fantastic to see.
It's been massive. And I think there has been a record on Twitter and all social media platforms to see the AFL ladder, just checking that the Hawks are positioned in number 1. So, yes, it's not a dream. Stay with us. Talking Hawks, we're all about connecting Hawks fans around the world, having a bit of fun, having a good, intelligent footy conversation. Welcome tonight. What are some of your big things from the game that was against Port Adelaide? Because fans, it was massive. Just quietly, Race and I are talking about this review. Daz has done the big star ratings on all the players, but I tell you what, there's so many things to write home about. So going across to the cauldron, players out, but it's a nice building block, isn't it? So we've gone from North, wooden spoons. I went to have breakfast this morning, and I was going for the cereal. There was absolutely no sign of wooden spoons in my kitchen. I could not get anything this morning. So the Hawks are well and truly in the clear, and we're on top of the ladder flying. Daz?
Yeah, I live in a 2-chef household, and there's no wooden spoons in my drawers either, mate. So we're sticking with the spatulas for now because we're not owning them at all. And yeah, it was a simply extraordinary night. It's the first time a Hawthorn team has gone interstate and led all day since round 2, 2008, if you can believe that, in our win against Freo. So 13 years in the making there, and ironically, another round 2 game. So I saw that circulating on Twitter, which was a really nice to see. And if someone had told me that Travis Boak would have 39 and Carl Amon would have 38 and Zach Butters would have 29, I'd probably walk away thinking that we got absolutely smacked. So it was an amazing night, and we used the ball really well, and so many other things that we're going to get stuck into it. So I think overall there's a real sense of pride, and I think that's the word that a lot of fans I think we need to go with, no matter what happens in the next sort of month. We've got Carlton, St Kilda, Geelong, Melbourne in the next month. So a win like this is something that we really need to hang our hat on, because as disappointed as we might be as the year goes on, we really need to reflect on these wins and all the good things that come of it. This is a 2-time preliminary finalist that we went in and beat comprehensively across the board.
Yeah. I'm surprised, we've had the president rock up to his day job for Port Adelaide, but 120, 19 goals, 6. My goodness. Goal kicking accuracy to 56, 7 goals, 14. So, look, let's just say the back half's looking pretty settled. But, yes, I did say, I'm going to give some credit here. Hawks Insiders were wondering if Jason Dunstall has got down there and given a few little tips to the fellas. But, look, amazing game. Probably unexpected for many. I tipped Port, sad to say.
So did we all did. And like Sam Mitchell said on AFL 360, so did Sam Mitchell's son, and we're all happy that we got it wrong. So we can live with getting a few wrong throughout the week. So, yeah, it's let's get into it. I can't wait for it. It was great. But the back six, like you said, they were amazing.
And look, we've just got a little bit of a premiership legend in Laddo. Thanks, mate, for joining us. And here we go. It's all about tearing you apart, Paul. We did have Scooter, and here he is. He was at the ground. Talking Hawks' own Adrian Scooter Byers was. I think he launched the Hawks scarf during the Tear Us Apart pre-game. And look,
geez, that's brave.
Well, look, he stood tall.
He did.
He stood very tall. But all right, so look, it's been probably an unexpected win. Let's get into it.
Yep.
And if you got the big questions tonight, I'm keen to hear. It's been a bit of coverage on the Hawks so far, and our favourite we've had some former Port Adelaide media personalities probably took it on the chin, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, took it well.
Took it on the chin. But look, it's a big game. So look, for mine, I want to touch on Harry Morrison this morning. RSN breakfast with Half, one of the Hawks.
Great man himself.
Yes. Harry Morrison, HMO, talked about the players' confidence and that being part of the coaching personnel, Sam Mitchell. They're all trying to unpick what's happened. How has Hawthorn turned this around? What are the players doing? What is Sam doing? And HMO talked about the positive reinforcement about the score, but Sam also said let's get on with it. So for mine, one of the biggest things was Sam Mitchell talking about playing to their strengths, and that the players are buying into that. So, Reece, I've got some questions to throw out before we go into the game too much, because I think it sets a precedence for what we saw on the field. I've got a few question marks. I had a few question marks, but until I heard Harry Morrison talk about Sam trying to play to the players' strengths, because I had question marks on McGuinness, Phillips, even I've seen fans on social talking about Jager, Chad, Mitchell, but that gave me some perspective because I think if Sam Mitchell and the coaching staff are trying to play to the strengths of the personnel, if we step back for a moment and go, all right, if you've got a fresh set of eyes and you're looking at Tom Mitchell, you're looking at Chad Wingard, you're looking at Jager O'Meara, how do you want them to contribute looking at the whole personnel? Because now we've got Ward, we've got these young kids we want to run through, C-Mac, Connor McDonald running through. How do you want to have those guys complement and play to their strengths? Nash, we saw Mitchell do it last year. So rant over. But what does that mean to you, Daz, and fans, if you try to take a fresh look at our personnel? Because I think that helps us unpack some of the game plan that we're looking at and getting us amazing results. Number one on the ladder. Daz.
It's a handy start. Yeah, so, I mean, look, our strength coming into the I was at Morwell and I had a couple of mates at Devonport, and it's fair to say that it was purely experimental. I think we can look at that now. Hindsight is 2020, that we were just trying things, and which is good to do, what the preseason is for. But it is really clear that our midfield is the weakness around the stoppage and around clearances. We were minus 24 to Port Adelaide, and we still win the game. And there are going to be media personnel that are going to ask why that is, and that is because the majority of our game plan revolves around us losing the clearance. Now, obviously, you might think that that's a little bit ridiculous, but I take you back to, sort of the mid-2010s, and every time we'd play Fremantle, it was always we'd be roving off Aaron Sandilands, or we'd be roving off Dean Cox if we were playing West Coast. It's the same principle, except that it's a whole midfield group instead of a ruckman. Now, Mitchell, O'Meara, Warple versus Boak, Wines, Brownlow medalist, and Carl Amon. On paper, we're probably behind. But where we were able to beat Port is once we would get the ball back, because we were rushing them in their forward, in their forward entries, we were able to get and go with good ball movement. We're top 4 in the league for rebound 50 so far. We're top 2 in the league for scores from defensive 50. And we've conceded the least amount of points in the competition. Now, we said that sort of tongue-in-cheek after the North game, and you have every right to say, well, that's North, and you're probably right. But again, for the second week in a row, we conceded the least amount of points in the league, and that is also considering, teams like Essendon were underdone, and you could argue Port were underdone with Charlie Dixon out, but they still had a 3-pronged tall attack that could have taken the game away from us, and we didn't let them do that. So if we can plan around what we do if we lose the clearance, I think it goes a long way while we develop, Ward, McDonald in this next premiership midfield. So, yeah, there is probably going to be a sacrifice of role from Jager, from Tom, from Jimmy Warple, that we're not going to be able to rove the pack, just get and go like you would see Melbourne, Carlton, who we obviously play on the weekend, the Bulldogs, even though their midfield at the moment is looking as badly as I do at a buffet. But what I think we need to focus on as Hawks fans is we just need to get the ball back. we're more than happy to go. We'll give you the footy, but we'll back ourselves to take it off you, and you're not going to stop us. And so far, for 8 quarters, that has worked beautifully.
100%. No, it's hard to argue, and I think this is what have we got here? Where was the backflip comment? 100%. Like, people are trying to work us out right now. You've got a brand apart from Monkhurst, and Laddo. If you've got some thoughts there, let us know. But apart from Monkey, there is some amazing personnel assembled between the coaching staff as it is. So you plug that IP and all this new passion into a playing group that there's an older group that was here ready to play for Clarko, and you've got these youngins, some that came under Clarko and others that are just ready to prove themselves. It is phenomenal, this energy. And I just think if we're trying to play to the strengths of some of these, the whole personnel, it's an amazing puzzle to unfold. And we'll have a great test against Carlton, and we'll unpack that in the next show. But look, against Port, some of the fans, yes, I love that. Lewis, let's go through some of the players. So, Reece, you've given a good review. I agreed with you. Lewis was our 5 star.
And not even close. And with all due respect to all the 4 stars that got there, but if I could have given him 6, I would have. But confidence is great. Like, for those out there, I'm going to assume that a lot of the people watching right now, like, we've got our own workplaces. It's walking into work with good people around you, no matter what job you're doing, is going to make your workplace better. And it's exactly the same. The delivery inside 50, you look at Mitch's 2 of his last 3 goals, Luke Bruce and Connor Nash's delivery inside 50 to him to set up those scores were 11 out of 10 on the scale. The delivery is so much better. Brad and Chris, who aren't obviously on the call right now, they're, all 4 of us were ripping our hair out last year because we were doing last year what Port did on Saturday night. And that was looking at young key forwards who haven't quite got the Tom Hawkins ability, you might say, to push his full back out of the way. We need to be hitting up at these guys. And thank God Port are living, 2 years in the past and dumping it on Todd Marshall's head. That worked out beautifully for our key backs, but it was just that 3-step of separation, and we were able to hit our targets, and 13 straight from set shots is just the cherry on top. So no wonder Mitch's confidence is high, where after 4 steps, he's not only got that bit of separation, but he's got guys that can deliver the ball to him. So I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if we're sitting, at Brownlow night, and on round 2, Mitch Lewis is on 6 votes alongside, probably, you'd argue, Andy Brayshaw and Patrick Cripps. So it's been a fantastic start.
Yep. Mate, it's phenomenal. Yeah, 5-zip. It's really the off season what he put in the gym in terms of weight. He's put it on the field tonight or on Saturday night, and he's just shown that the hard work has resulted in. It's just a culmination, isn't it, of work, and the way it was delivered. And we'll talk about it. It was that deep. It was the quick ball and deep inside 50 that probably helped set him up. But if that's part of what the rest of the competition has to work out, and if Lewis can just sit there and just gobble that up for the next, who knows how long, until they work out how to try and stop that, we're in a really nice spot, because we've got Gunston absolutely tearing it up. And for mine, he was one of the top 3 players as well, because Gunners is just, he's showing, look, for mine, it hurt me deep to think that we were potentially entertaining. Well, no, maybe we weren't entertaining, but Colin would come hard at him. I didn't want to let him go, and look at the rewards from Jack.
Yeah, you can't teach footy IQ, and you look at both goals he kicked on his left. You can't coach that. You're not going to a draft combine and going, all right, what we're going to do is you're going to push your opponent under the ball. You're going to grab the ball while your back right shoulder is literally adjacent to the point post, and you're going to be able to screw it over your shoulder and kick it on the full, even if there was someone on the line. They weren't touching that. You can't teach that. And, who would have thought, and I know a lot of Hawthorn fans, we are just absolutely shocked that when you put a best and fairest winner and an All-Australian caliber halfback flanker into a team, you improve. Who would have thought? It's the mainstream media it's an interesting one. the Hawks, we even when we were good, we never got favours from the media, and we don't expect them. But it's if we're gonna pot the media for that, we're going to improve, and we're going to sit here probably at some point this year with a 64-point loss. But there is absolutely no doubt that any sort of expectations that we have already been met, because we're 8 quarters in and we can see where the club is going. And if someone out there is not positive about it, as the chief pessimist of the Hawthorn Football Club as I am, I'd love for you to tell me why, because I can't figure it out, that why we would possibly be anything less than ecstatic on how it's going so far.
Well, I'm going to go back through some of these comments because there's a raft of things coming through from the Hawks fans.
Love that.
Hawks faithful. Playing to the strengths.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're going to see it all, but we've got more who, for mine, when I tried to assess the top 5, he was definitely in the mix. More 25 total sprint efforts. Repeat sprint efforts for Hawthorn, more 10. Have a guess who the next closest was and how many they were on.
Who sprints? Connor Nash with 6.
Nashy with 3.
Oh, I'm impressed. I got Connor Nash right.
He was third behind DJ with 4. So more playing to the strengths. He's got the engine. He's got the confidence up. He's kicking 2 goals. Mate, there's no problem for mine playing to the strengths when we're looking at this sort of stuff. Ward, you look at the tank, you look at the engine. He's 9.7 average speed in defense. So looking at how he swoops in, gets it out, I'm like, the next closest was Houston on 9.2 and more in defense at 9 kilometers an hour. So I'm like, Maury's running his butt off, and then you've got the young fella in Ward who's time trial king. Great. It's just like they're absolutely playing to their strengths. McGuinness, 9 kilometers an hour, and then Phillips 8.9 in defense. So I'm like, we're just sweeping it out of there and we're moving it fast. Yeah. And that for mine has been a big thing when I'm trying to observe and understand this new game plan. Tommy Phillips' average moving speed, he was the fastest for the game at 9.4 across kilometers per hour.
It was fresh as the sub, but that's still a ripping stat.
Correct. And you pay all dues there.
Yeah, correct.
Joshy Ward, 9.3 across the game. But Finn McGuinness has run a marathon 16.4 kilometres across the game, total distance. So Amon's 15.4, HMO at 15.1. So I'm looking at Finn McGuinness and Sam and the coaching staff trying to play to the strengths. And I'm like, I'm wanting more from McGuinness in terms of possessions. But if he's running that frigging hard and he's getting to the ball and he's getting hands on ball and the possession's a little bit wanting for mine, I'm like, okay, how many games do you give a kid and do you give this whole team when they're trying to understand playing to their strengths? So I'm just been pondering these things over a few days now, and I'm pretty happy with some of the things we're saying, even though sometimes I can be a bit critical. But yeah,
and it's amazing how it's so easy now in a social media day and age, you would argue, that we can just pop blokes for what they can't do. But, everyone, no matter what workplace you're in, I know I've spoken about it before, but you need to be celebrated. And I'm not talking ticker tape parade or anything like that, but for what you can do, what you bring is much more important than what you don't, because it's a lot easier to learn what you don't than to try and be perfect at what you do. We're trying to become, and footballers now more than anyone need to be as well-rounded as they can. And, you look at Dylan Moore, we drafted him as an outside midfielder, and it's clear that that's not what he could do. It's what it was tried to make do. He had that great game against Gold Coast that essentially kept him on our list, and we went, well, can you do something as a half forward? And if there was, a rolling all-Australian team, I think Matty Lloyd does one on the Sunday Footy Show that'll start in a couple of weeks. If Dylan Moore is not on that half-forward flank, I'm going to smack Lloyd myself. I'm not actually going to do that. But, there is a case to be made that does the generational gap, and I'm not comparing Mitchell to Clarko, but is there such a generational gap in society from the smacking blokes for what they can't do versus celebrating what they can do? Is that the fresh voice that Sam's bringing? So far, you would probably say yes.
Yeah, 100%. And with a few tweaks, what does it give us? Like Con here, good point.
Elite point. And just to add to that, it's so if the ball's going into Mitch Lewis, it's not like Jack Gunston's letting his opponent go third up. I mean, we looked at the best third up defender, I would argue, in the history of the game, in Josh Gibson, do it for years, where his opponent would just let him go. But the intelligence of our forwards, and Dylan Moore did it with Darcy Byrne-Jones on plenty of occasions. It's just holding out. So the only options that Mitch Lewis has got is take the mark or bring it to ground. And that's got to be the rule for every forward. You just don't lose the one-on-one contest. And I think in our forward half, we only lost 6, so which was, I think, number 2 for the round behind Sydney. So yeah, it's weird to be talking about probably all these positives, given the fact that we've only won 8 with 2 draws of our last what's that now, 24 games of footy. So it's a wonderful feeling, and I think we need to look at that back 6. I think we need to look at a Jack Scrimshaw, who we got for nothing, essentially. We need to look at James Sicily, who just is back to what he is, which is fantastic. And I think we need to look at a Sam Frost. Frosty with the ball in his hand is massively confusing and kind of breathtakingly beautiful at times, and might want to rip your hair out. But ever since we gave Frosty the job on Buddy up in Sydney, for those that remember last year, I don't think he's lost a contest over the course of 4 quarters to any key forward. So it's working really, really well right now, which is what I think Hawthorn fans are wanting to jump out of their seats and get to the footy. And if we aren't drowning out Carlton fans on Sunday, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah, it's just we're not going to be able to get all these comments, but the speed with which the ball is being used, it's the quick decision. So for mine, I've been critical at times of Tom Mitchell in the past and the disposal efficiency and things like that, as can be the criticism. But when it's coming out that fast, what does that result in? If it gets to a Hawthorn player, and going back to Sam Mitchell, a la Box Hill Hawks coach last year, he was shooting for 120 points a game. If you haven't heard, we've got Box Hill this year shooting for 120 points a game. So in knowing Proctor has adopted the same game plan as Box Hill coach, I'm like, the alignment's phenomenal. David Noble was North coach this morning. He was asked about whether the emphasis might have been more on attack than defense this year, and he said absolutely it is. It seems that way this year. So not Hawthorn, but as a competition, if we're focusing a little bit less on defense, and let's face it, Hawks, we've got a good back 6. We're very, very deep. So I don't think the defense is going to be too much of a worry. And you bring in Sicily and big boy moving where he needs to. Like you've got Frost, you've got these senior voices organising whatever's going on back there. So I'm very encouraged by the ability to get it out quick, whether it's I guess efficiency and whatnot, things like that I've looked to be critical on in the past. I'm actually having to take stock. So Hardigan, for mine, he's probably going to struggle to get a look in at this point. It's early days to call that, but he wasn't that special with Box Hill on the weekend.
No, and you've probably got to ask yourself, what are the tall forwards in the league that he is better suited? Because you've got to ask yourself, that is the number one goal scorer for the opposition better suited for Frost or Hardigan? If the answer is Hardigan, then Denver's probably the one to miss out. He's the youngest one. Even though he's our man, I think you've got to look at it that way. And you would argue Joe Danaher is 50-50. Maybe the height might suit Hardigan a little bit better, but the only ones that really scream off the page are Tom Hawkins, and of course Charlie Dixon didn't play. So, do I trust Sam Frost on a Tom Lynch from Richmond? Absolutely I do. Because Frosty's got that, he's got the jump, he's got the dog-hungry fight, and I think he's only conceded 1 free kick for the year so far, and that was probably one of the softest things I've seen to Larky last week. So it's a great problem to have, and don't forget, we're going to be sitting here in a month figuring out how do we get, over the course of 4 weeks, Will Day, Jarman Impey, and Lockie Bramble back into the team. Like, young talent. We don't have any young talent. Mainstream media, give me a break. Come on. Yeah. Tell us you don't watch the Hawks without telling us you don't watch the Hawks, for crying out loud.
So all these underrated, and almost every single week you can go name Hardwick, and you go underrated.
He's
Scrimshaw,
great.
underrated.
Yep.
But for mine this week, Scrimshaw was in our best 5 players.
Yep.
I know you like. Sorry, I couldn't help but shouting out over the top. Samboy, packet of chips. He is the best deal in the league, and still growing. So many positive influences on just a ball touch, a body, a disposal out. He did so much against Port, and it's probably understated. And wouldn't Brownlow votes, all of that jazz, never getting cited inside the club. Massive, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, well, you look at Blake Hardwick. I think he's polled 6 Brownlow votes for his career. He's had 2 runner-ups in the Peter Crimmins medal. That tells you everything you need to know. The right people aren't watching the right players. So, but the other aspect that we want to talk about, Matty, and I'll kind of put you on the spot here because I'm bringing that to the table. We haven't even got to the draft hall yet. Josh Ward and Connor McDonald, between them, have played 7 NAB League games. Like each. Sorry, not between them. Both of them have played 7 NAB League games each in 2 years. Josh Ward captained Melbourne Grammar. Connor McDonald captained Haileybury. I think I've pronounced that right. And they've come in, and it's not like they've come in and gone, geez, we've got to give them a game, otherwise we're in no good shape. They've come in and been really, really good. Now, they're going to get overshadowed by your Jake Bowie this week, your Jason Horne-Francis, your Josh Rochelle, your Nick Dacos, all that. That's fine. And we're happy to have them do that. But if you're talking about guys that are going to play 22 games and be really, really noticeable throughout, those 2 boys are probably going to head that pack because they're not your can win a game off their own boot yet. But if you get 22 games into these guys this year, 3 years' time when they're both getting their premiership medals, 3, 4, 5 years down the track, I think a lot of people are going to look back and go, geez, this draft haul was all right because Ned Long and Jai Sarong were both pretty good for Box Hill, and I think Sammy Butler's under a little bit of an injury cloud right now, but even he's one that we might have to bring in, and probably the one I forgot about when I talked about Tanner Bruin in last week, but I'll still keep an eye on Tanner. So apologies to Sam there, I didn't mean to forget you. So we haven't done a thing wrong, and we're not getting credit for it at all. And to everyone, non-Hawthorn fans, although there's probably none of you here, but this whole Dixon and Aaliyah were out, so there's excuses. Dixon hasn't kicked 50 goals in a season. Aaliyah's had 1.5 good years of footy. I'm sorry, they're not an 11-goal difference in this game. They got pantsed.
Yep.
And can you tell I'm happy? I'm not sure if I'm really portraying that enough.
You talk about the draft haul, and you've still got a Jai Sarong and a Ned Long who are like doing well at a Box Hill level. It's so early. So I think the quality of this draft that we've just gone through, the depth is just, it's got even deeper. So I think Sam being involved when he was at a Box Hill level, and then working in with the transition with Clarko, recruitment, etc., albeit he was being criticised perhaps for being pretty on the blower and hands-on and all of this sort of stuff. Look, we've got our senior players right now contributing pretty well, or at least being perhaps less so than last year and the year prior, some of them, but embracing what the energy, what the youth is bringing, the game plan and the change of voice. So for mine, I think we're in a very, very healthy spot. So, 100%. You talk about some of the outs. Not a conversation in this game. We saw, look, talking Hawks own, Jai Newcomb, probably a little bit less than last week for sure. Still running very hard, still contributing. Any thoughts on Jai?
Yeah, I love the way that Jai covered the ground, and you could tell he was gassed when he got that free kick. And when you're looking at a guy that you probably doesn't have the 10 highlights to put on the highlight reel, although Jai was nowhere near bad in this game, and I'm not suggesting that, but for him to take, I think he had 2 seconds left when he walked in and kicked that goal on the boundary, and you could just tell he was gassed. He was wrecked from probably a lot of unrewarded running and effort throughout the game. But to go back and kick a goal like that when he's as knackered as he was, they're the moments that you look at and go, yeah, they're 100% in. So whilst, Jai's probably not going to come off and think to himself, I dominated today, you got to make your moments count. And he was one that certainly did that. And the back-to-back tackles in that third quarter where he did bring down Amon and then Boak, which caused the turnover. I think it led to a Luke Bruce point or a Dylan Moore point. So that probably should have got a bit more recognition than it deserved. So he had his moments, and when it was his turn to go, he went. And if 22 blokes do that, you win games of footy, which is evident by walking away with a 64-point win. So beautiful.
Yep. And I don't want to go into too much, but we will do a preview Andrew, I think you're talking about Hartigan here. Chime in if you are. Wednesday night, we'll do a preview show for the Carlton Hawthorn game, which should be an absolute cracker. Chime in again for me, Andrew, if that's where you're going, because I want to talk about DGB, because between those two, Denver's lifted a little bit in probably his game from last week. For mine, what's he come up with? So 6 disposals. You're looking at what he's doing off the ball, and it's not necessarily about getting the ball, the role he's playing right now. With the matchups is my view.
Spent so much of the game on Todd Marshall. Todd Marshall didn't score. And I think it was, I don't want to name a media organization in case I'm wrong, but someone came out that picked Denver as one of the breakout players of 2022 and then said that he's off to a slow start. You can look at the stat book all you like, but as far as I'm concerned, Callum Coleman-Jones kicked, I think, a point in round 1. Todd Marshall didn't score in round 2. We have a pick 6 who's doing that this early in the year. The last pick 6 that went as a key defender was Fisher Mackesy, who can't get a game for Adelaide. Got to be happy with what Denver's doing. It's as simple as that. He doesn't need to find the footy yet, because we've got a guy called James Sicily that is all-Australian caliber, and Denver's not all-Australian caliber yet. But once Denver grows into what he is, he's going to be able to shut guys down and then use the footy. Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, and what he showed at the waffle level pre-AFL was a la Sis. Sorry, forgive me. Rose-coloured glasses.
Yeah, we hate doing this, but we're going to do it.
but I think we've got absolute ripper, and he doesn't need to perform the same sort of role. So learning, absolutely, Denver, you should be in the gym right now. Don't leave tonight to listen to us. Stay in there. And next week, next time we get you on, we want to know you've just come out of the weights room again. But I think he's going to play an absolute key role in the years to come. And he does work very closely with Sis. In terms of a mentor, you've got basically an all-Australian who went down with a knee and then comes back. Basically, you could say Sicily's almost all-Australian right now, albeit a little bit rough round 1. But I think Sis is going to be in the mix right there. So I think back to, sorry, who was it? Andrew's point.
It was about
Hartigan this week?
No. Oh, yeah. Oh, geez, it's hard because you can't. If we roll with a key backman tag and the player, I am not comparing players here, but when West Coast were up and firing sort of 2005-6, that era, you think of Darren Glass v. Barry Hall. What a comparison that is, I know, but it wasn't like if Barry Hall went up the ground, Darren Glass would follow him. It was as close to a key back tag as you can get. Hartigan needs to do that to McKay. If Harry McKay gets up the field, Hartigan needs to follow him. If he sags back and takes the deepest forward, I mean this in the most respectful way, Charlie Curnow is going to do things to him like he did to the Western Bulldogs, because I'm not saying Kyle Hartigan's a Ryan Gardner type, but Ryan Gardner can't athletically go with Charlie Curnow, and he got 5 kicked on him, and I think Hartigan's the same. I think he's got to defensively tag McKay, and if Hartigan is taking contests on the wing, it does not bother me in the slightest, because then you've got Frost and Curnow. What a matchup that would be. And do we keep Denver in the side to go to a Jack Silvani potentially, or do you put, a dimmer on Jack as that smaller type and then get one of our other defenders to run with, Corey Dern and Matty Owies, who are doing really well? That's probably a conversation for the Carlton preview. But if Hartigan plays, it needs to be Mackay or VFL for me, and I think it's that simple.
Interesting, throwing up DJBV, Silvani. Anyway, I won't get into the preview. I do want to come back to Chad Wingard. So we saw him run off at the end. And we're probably glossing over a lot of the game here in this conversation tonight. But there was a light shuffle over to the fence. And so he came off with a hamstring early on. For mine, when I thought about the strengths again, I'm going to go to it. Pondering, is Chad Wingard, you saw him missing marks. You saw him fumbling where you'd normally see him clean. And I'm wondering if Chad Wingard is hearing the game plan as move the ball on quick. And it's almost like his mind is the next step.
Yeah, he's next disposal before he's got the ball in his hand. I agree with you.
So, yeah, look, I've got time and space for Chad for them to work out where he fits, jump long sleeve or not. I don't know. I'll let him choose, but I want to see him clunking it, and I want to see him relax and be the skillful player that he is.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little bit of relaxing. You've got new coaching voices. You've got potentially a new game plan, and I think he's that uber competitive. He's bursting out of his own skin, and he's trying to do what he knows needs to happen. But this game, many times on numerous occasions, he was doing the next play before he even got his hands on it.
Yeah, and the great positive, and this is probably going to be a controversial opinion, so for all those Hawks fans that want to get stuck into me for something, I'd fire up the keyboard now. I think the worst thing that can happen in terms of the rebuild, if we do acknowledge that this is a rebuild, is either Tom Mitchell, Chad Wingard, or Jaeger O'Meara winning the best and fairest would probably be the worst thing for the rebuild, because since the 2018, right, we lost in straight sets, and we probably figured out at that point, hey, this one last chance for a flag ain't going to work. Tom Mitchell does his leg. Jimmy Warple wins the best and fairest, and our midfield looked like it was a bit more multi-dimensional. Tommy Mitchell comes back into the fray, wins the best and fairest by, if we're being honest, a landslide, and we didn't look our best again. For the Hawks to take that next level, Tom Mitchell needs to be our best midfielder, but not our best player. That's my point. Chad Wingard can be absolutely our best forward on the day, cannot be our best player. Jaeger O'Meara can be our best midfielder on a day, cannot be our best player. Mitch Lewis, Jack Gunston, James Sicily, Jack Scrimshaw, these guys need to take that next step and become our best players, because if you're thinking about our next premiership list, is Tommy on there? Maybe not. These young guys that are coming through need to be challenging these old blokes for these things like best and fairest, breakouts, all these kind of things. In order for us to take the next step, that torch needs to be passed over, and there's no better passing of the torch than things like best and fairest and individual awards to go there. So if Mitchell, O'Meara, or Wingard win the best and fairest, I think it's almost a step back.
Really good perspective. Mia more as well. Yes, absolutely. Well, he's still kicking 2 goals a game.
Yeah, we'll take it from 3 touches.
Well, and can you criticize that? It is really hard to look at the various. Who was it? Someone else here? Cody, the doctor, talking about Chad. You know, yes, firing up as the season goes on. Okay, their bodies are their bodies. We've got our personnel, medical personnel, giving everything to make them get on the park and stay on the park. For mine, it's just fascinating to try to understand, to step back and observe what's going on, these different dynamics, looking at different ball movement, different running patterns, different structures. And tonight, I probably hope we could, and hopefully you're enjoying it, give us your insights. What are you seeing that's a little bit different from what we've done in the past? And I'm just trying to have a new lens on some of these guys. I think Jaeger O'Meara last week and this week has sacrificed his body a lot. And is this the coaching panel saying, who's going to get past Jaeger? Is a brick wall. If he can use his strength and he's giving up in terms of possessions, but he's getting us the ball, or he's protecting and giving us a better opportunity to collect the ball and use it effectively, is that a slight tweak to Jaeger's game? And I'm watching on socials. I think Jaeger's been criticised a bit. I think there's just a slight tweak to the game plan with Mitchell, O'Meara, Chad. And I'm like, Sam Mitchell playing to the strengths. I don't know. Maybe it's on falling on deaf ears and I'm repeating myself. But I think if you stop to think about the different players and their strengths, there's a newness, there's a freshness to all of this.
Yeah, and you got to ask yourself, what do Hawthorn need in order to win a game of footy? And in the first 2 games of this year, We answered that. The back six being solid, good delivery inside 50. You look at Melbourne. What Melbourne needed to beat the Bulldogs in the grand final was their midfield. That third quarter when they broke it apart, Oliver and Petrarca walked the ball out of the stoppage, and they're doing it again this year. You look at a Carlton, they're doing exactly the same thing. Just because our method is different doesn't mean it's inferior. And when you said, and like we said, we lost the clearances by 24. That's 6 times a quarter. We're essentially telling the opposition, you have the ball first. Good luck to you. Good luck scoring. They had 54 clearances and scored 56 points.
That's crazy. And
we had 30 clearances and scored 120. It shouldn't make sense, but it does, because we are building our next premiership side from the defense upwards. So that back six is going to be together for a hell of a long time, and we're hoping James Sicily signs on for another 5 years. But the essence of Dimmer, CJ, Will Day, Lockie Bramble, Jack, I'm going to forget someone, so please forgive me. Jack Scrimshaw, James Sicily. I think I got them all. Yeah, and you could even throw in Harry Morrison, who can go back there as a depth player. Dan Howe, if we keep him at the end of the year, there are going to be some clubs that are going to look at him. Whether you're looking at, Denver obviously is a tall. They're going to be together for a while. The age profile there is really similar. Our age profile up forward is pretty similar. Now, Cozzy and Jackson Callow aren't playing yet, and we can live with that at the moment because it's working. But, Gunston and Bruce, the old heads, but Dylan Moore, Mitch Lewis, Connor McDonald, Josh Ward, although he's not a forward, but you can look at it as these young guys are building together. We're going to get up and down results, but what do Hawthorn need to win a game of footy? We need our defense to be the best in the league, and everything else falls into place, and they're doing that. So the fact that we can tell, we told a Brownlow medalist, a 34-year-old who's been better in his 30s than his 20s in Travis Boak, we told Carl Amon, who I'd argue is a top 5 field kick in the league, and we told Sam Powell-Pepper, who was Port Adelaide's best player, 24 times in this game you can start with the ball, we'll still beat you, and we did. It's extraordinary.
We've got a new in race, Daz. Here it
What's
is. We've got a new in.
How would you go on Big H Mac, the former Coleman medalist? A pretty good target first up.
I'll probably get 3 weeks, but I'll take him out.
Oh no, we don't condone that on Talking Talks. No, not at all. Not at all. No,
you talk about talent and heart. I'm just like I'm a bit more heart. So look, it's Look, the big one for mine, the speed it's coming out of defense and the cleanness, using the corridor, phenomenal. Nashi, here we go. I'm picking and choosing maybe a little bit out of context some of these comments here, but
that's a big call.
Playing to the strengths. How was that goal?
No.
See you later. It's just like, I'll sign your autographs, he says to the defenders as he's running through and kicking a goal. It's brilliant. I think we're going deep. Plays to any forward strength. So you've got 2 talents in Lewis and Gunston, but if you're moving it down quick and you've got Finn McGuinness, you've got more just absolutely running their tails off. You got Phillips. I'm like, okay, wow. How can you argue with the results at this point? All right, easy fixture maybe so far.
No, hang on. No, it's not. This is a North Melbourne team that beat us in Tasmania last year and a team that made 2 prelim finals in a row. No, stop it. And we've got, not stop it you, stop it media that are saying this. Carlton is 50-50. They just are. They let the ball, if Josh Dunkley kicks 2 set shot goals and Jamara Ugle-Hagan knew how to use his hands, they lose that game. Now, yes, they kick 17-5, which is great. Good on them. But that's still 50-50. St Kilda, Jesus. I know I've criticised our midfield for being boring, but they can 100% take that mantle office, for goodness grief. Anything can happen against Geelong, and we tied with Melbourne last year. That's the next 4. So, yeah, we could be 3-3, 2-4, 4-2. Could be anything. John Newcomb deliver inside 50 there, 100% agree. But we can't control who we play. We control how we play. And don't underestimate the stand rule. We were so slow to it last year. We are playing on and we are going, and the ability of our defense, and I'm talking our back 9, so the 6 that are probably there on the weekend. You add in the 2 wingmen if you want to include Phillips there. That's absolutely fine. No Orazio, Dixon, Gray, Elliott. That's no excuse. That's not a 64-point turnaround. But you could argue the delivery inside 50 is great, but you look at Gunston's snap goal, Dylan Moore kicked a goal, Luke Bruce kicked a goal from Crumming. The delivery isn't perfect. But when we're not letting teams get back, we're telling them, are you one of the best settled back sixes in the competition? If not, we're going to burn you. And we've done it twice already. We should have kicked probably a bigger score last week. We kicked a big score this week. We're conceding 57 points a game so far. But we're getting it and we're going. And probably a lack of perfect inside 50 delivery is being made up by the fact that we've got Mitch Lewis, Jack Gunston in the air are fantastic, on the ground are very good. And when you add in Dylan Moore and Luke Bruce, it's fantastic. So that stand rule, I know Hawthorn fans don't like it, but right now, watch the game against Carlton, watch how many times we try to play on, and the guy getting the handball received from behind the mark that's taking it over the mark and then using the ball, watch how much that's affecting us, and hopefully it'll turn you around on the rule, because it's absolutely what's coming.
Yeah. Look, it's there's a few comments here that are classic. Yes, thank you, Darren. Frosty was magnificent, and
I think I gave Frosty his due credit, I think, but more credit to Frosty, because like we say, when he's got the ball in his hand, I kind of just want to cover one eye and just go, oh no. But when the ball's in the air, he doesn't lose.
Yep.
Simple as that.
Phenomenal game. There was a comment here around the ruck. I just want to touch on it because look at game plan. The time on game. I don't know if I'm going to get these stats up quick enough. Reeves, 34 hitouts. Ben McAvoy, 16. So for the time on ground, if I can quickly find that, Reeves, 68% of the time on ground. McAvoy did move around. He was 81%. So fine.
That's surprising. 81.
Yeah, look, it's decent for McAvoy, but for mine, hitouts to advantage is where it hurts us. Reeves, it's still area for improvement. Get hand to the ball, great, but 7 hitouts to an advantage. That's not enough. Keep working, young fella.
I want to defend him a little. I'm not saying you're wrong. I do agree with you, but this is a guy that's under 20 games of football. But I'm going to put, this is my little personal message, not that they're going to watch this, but to Jaeger O'Meara and Jimmy Warple, I'm just going to say this is with love. It's exasperated love here. If you attack a clearance with one hand one more time, I'm going to cut your other one off if you don't think you need it. Oh, it's extra. I'm not actually going to do that, but it's extraordinary. Right. And Jimmy Warple's probably the one that kind of makes me want to go, Jimmy, just please, you've got 2 hands, son. They're fantastic. That are attacking the ball one-handed out of the stoppage is just, I do agree with you that Reeves' tap work, it looks maybe a little bit predictable. I do think that he's getting shafted a little by our mids that are either second to the stoppage or attacking it a bit one-handed. But Ned Reeves, he hasn't even played 10 games yet. Like,
I'm putting this on Monkey.
He'll be fine.
Big fella.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Can you get the Giants in this week? I don't want the little snakes. I want the big ones because Reeves is a big fella.
Absolutely.
So, Monkey.
He needs the more blood sugar.
Give it to us. Reeves, I want hitouts to advantage up. Ben McAvoy, 16 hitouts with 11 to advantage. Ned, the noodle, 34 hitouts. Amazing, but 7 to advantage. So, all right, combination of Monkey, midfielders, connection, noodle. Justin, if you need to talk to your son, please do that. Whatever it takes, let's make it happen against the Blues. But we've gone into next week. We're trying to do a review, not a preview. So, all right. Let's go to the fans, Daz. All right. What do you think about the doctor here, Cody?
I like it. Aliir is that kind of defender that, and he kind of reminds Darcy Moore's a little bit like it as well. Is as a forward, you'd love actually playing on him because you've got 2 choices: jump at the footy or let him jump at the footy. And the way that Mitch Lewis is going, he would have just dragged Aliir to contests anyway. So I struggle to think that Aliir would have had such an impact on Mitch Lewis. We wouldn't have won the game. If you halve his goals and he kicks 2.5, we'll even go, he wipes 3 goals off Mitch. Oh, well, boo-hoo, we win by 46 points. So I'd still take it. So I'm not sure about owning. They're the kind of hypothetical things. But, you know, the way that Mitch played, I don't think it gave Aliir a lot of intercept marking potential, which is his one would. Because as a one-on-one defender, I don't think he's maybe as strong in that area as he is, you know, leaping over the top and taking intercept marks. So I can kind of see where Cody's coming from there.
Yep, love it. there's lots of conversations going on. I'm probably taking some of these out of context.
We love it. That's all right.
Work with us, people. Tell me where I'm wrong. But Scotty, look, that's 100%. I wish there was a stat across the league. These two, phenomenal. What they're doing in the aerial work. I think they have been training with the Cirque du Soleil in the air, and they are going very, very well. We just need to see others around them doing the job. And I think when you've got Impey and Bramble and others to come in, hopefully this week, there's not going to be an issue I'm not seeing an issue for any time like this year.
Yeah, and we've conceded 58 and 56 points this year. I think the intercepts are going pretty well, personally. And, it's going to continue. We're going to be fine with that. Can't wait to get Bramble back in. Dan, you and I are in exactly the same boat there. I don't know about you. I'd love to see him on a wing. I do like the fact that he takes kickouts, but there is something about, Scrimshaw delivering the ball to maybe an O'Meara, bigger body in the contest, that's giving it to Bramble on a wing. I think I'd much rather see Bramble's 2 bounces, which is a bit like, who am I thinking of? Who's Adam Sard, where as soon as he gets the ball, he likes to take a bounce, Gaelic footy style. I'd probably rather see Bramble's 2 running bounces be a delivery inside 50 than out of the 50. Not that I'm going to complain either way, but Lockie Bramble on a wing just sounds so exciting to me.
Dan, yes, we did have Reaver, the Noodle, on for 68% of the game time.
So, did you see the photo of him next to Mitch Lewis? Just to see just how tall he, it's free. He is a head, and this is a big head I'm talking about here, taller than me. And it's freaky to me, but it's amazing that this is a guy that is that raw, that is, his hit out win percentage right now is second to the league. And the person that's first has taken something like 40 less ruck contests than him. I think it's Tim English, who's number 1, by the way, who was up against Mark Pittenay, which is good, and Max Gawn last week. And Gawney, I think, rocked up with dinner plates on his hands. So, interesting.
Damiami, Lynch. I think we'll see some games this season where Big Boy has a rest. And there might be some games where they do want to rest the Noodle. Reeves had a few games off with injury last year, and between he and Segs, they had a few injuries. Big Boy just had to absolutely be a soldier. So it wouldn't surprise me if they do rest a little bit of Big Boy and Reeves and test the combinations of Lynch coming in. Yeah. But I think Lynch, more of a carbon copy Big Boy. Obviously, you can't replace height, and Reeves getting 37 hit-outs in Lynch. But, look, Lynch, what is it, 4 games now? You got to keep giving him a crack, but I don't know if it's this week against the
matchup-wise too. I don't think it works. I don't want to go down the preview path too much, but Tom DeConning, you've got that real athletic side, which I think Reeves can nullify given his height. And then Mark Pittenay, we know the former Hawk, is that big bustling type, and he's kind of that, fire needs to beat fire. So McAvoy looks like the perfect matchup there. So maybe not against this, but when you're looking at, if St Kilda get, the week after, you're looking at Marshall and Hayes probably, depending on how Paddy Ryder goes. You're probably going to need, the 2 athletic guys. So McAvoy and Lynch would probably be a better combination than there. So I think Lynch and Reeves together probably play 16 games each this season. I think that would be a win, and we can figure out where to go from there. Because at the end of the day, if we're winning a flag 3, 4, 5 years down the road, those 2 are the ruckman, and we're hoping that those 2 are the ruckman, and Big Boy's probably not going to be it. So I think it all depend on matchup, and I think the matchup suits Reeves and McAvoy this week.
Yeah. All right. A question a little bit removed from the game, but there was the conversation. Actually, here we go. Darwin Impey first. Jars. As soon as he's in, forward or back, Daz?
Forward. Easy.
Okay.
Yep. Because,
all right.
I think the question you've got to ask yourselves is what if he gets, let's just pick a number, 15 disposals, right? Is he going to be more dangerous with 15 disposals, 40 out from defensive goal, or our goal? I'm putting my money in our goal, to be honest, because who wants to line up with Lewis, Gunston, Bruce, Moore, Impey, and Wingard as your 6. Good luck. That's all I got to say. Good luck stopping that.
No one.
Forward for me.
All right. One more question. And for those Hawthorn intel that's here, we're asked on the last YouTube about Bramble. Where's he at? And just trying to find the exact question here. I do believe he's gone back to Western Australia. So Noctis Griggs off YouTube. Is Brockman finished and wanting to go home? So flat out, straight between the eyes.
Well, we don't know.
That's the question. Yeah, absolutely don't know. Do know, talking to Denver, that he and Brockman have got a good connection. There's obviously Wingard. That is probably seeing Burgoyne finish up, taking that senior mantle amongst the Aboriginal Indigenous fellas. I don't doubt there's a lot of people getting around him. And if he's had to go back home for various reasons, the club hasn't revealed a whole lot here. But I believe he's in the mix. He's going to be around. And we did have, Changa come on Talking Hawks and talk about that time where he had to go back home. The club really freed him up to attend to certain family things. Check out Talking Hawks interview on that. He's very, very honest. I don't think that the heart of the Hawthorn Football Club has changed in the slightest, so it wouldn't surprise me if there's some things going on there with Bramble that he needs to attend to, that there's people around him and there's a lot of support. So I don't think he's finished.
Well, it's a win-win situation, and I hope no one takes that. I'll explain what I mean by that, because if Brocky looks at it as like I just needed to go home, but I'm committed to the Hawthorn Football Club, fantastic. We'd love to have him. He's got the 33. Every single Hawks fan wants to see him dominate for us, hopefully. And if that's the decision that's made, that he wants to stay at the club and everything's fine, awesome, fantastic. Love to have you. You could definitely be part of our next premiership squad if you develop the way that we believe you're going to. Or whether it's the end of the year, halfway through the year, the club comes out and says the Brocky needs to return home. That's going to be, a decision that is in the benefit for his mental health. And it really does not matter what jumper you put on. If Brocky is unhappy at the Hawthorn Football Club, it ain't going to mean a thing to us. And if he needs to go home and that is the best thing for him, every Hawks fan, I believe, and every football fan needs to go, you know what? We understand. There are things like homesickness. There would be so many things that we don't understand. If that's the decision that's made, we wish him all the best. We hope that if he does play AFL, it's not too well against us. And, when he retires, hopefully after a decade, no matter what club he's at, hopefully he's a star. Or if footy's not for him, that's also the third option, then we wish him all the best anyway. So there's no losers out of this at all, and just something to keep an eye on. And hopefully it's something that doesn't get a whole lot of traction on, because we'll let the club and Brocky figure out what's next on their own. So hopefully he doesn't get bothered too much about it. But there's genuinely no losers here. Whatever happens with Brocky is going to be in the best interest of himself, which is the only important thing in this situation.
Yep. My apologies there. Yeah, Brocky, we're talking about clearly. So look, there's no authority on all of that.
No, we have not. We're just speculating.
Don't know anything.
But we wish him the best.
Just understand the club and the ethos of the club. And, no doubt there'll be a lot of support. So, all right, we are going to look to wrap this up. There was one or two questions that we're just going to finish on here. Here we go, Jeff. I believe he is running again. I think I heard that last week. So I think they estimated it to be a 6-week sort of return. Have you got anything more on that, Daz?
Not that I know of. I think the club is targeting Melbourne in round 6, because it's going to be a 6-day turnaround from the Geelong Easter Monday game. So I don't really see the need to bring him in for that Geelong game, give him 6 days off to go again. So I think we'll see him in for that Melbourne game. And I think we've got Gold Coast the week after, which I think is a 6-day break anyway. So I think if we bring him in for the Melbourne game, go the 6 games to Gold Coast and launch from there, I think that's going to be the best result. So if he's in before Easter Monday, I'd be pleasantly surprised. But I think if we look at that Melbourne game as a good result, I think that's what they'll go with.
Yep. Andrew, yes, do believe Lynch has had some prior concussion issues, so wouldn't surprise me.
I think one of them was a contact one, though. I think he got hit in the head with a stray footy at Collingwood the year before.
Did you see the kicking that year?
2020.
Did you see the kicking? Yes, exactly.
That would have been an incidental one. But, I understand that there's a lot of thing about concussion, but you look at a story like Paddy McCartan with all that he's been through and he's back on the footy field. So until we know that something is drastically wrong, I think we assume that the club's going to take every precaution necessary and get him back on the park as soon as they can.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, look, Talking Hawks, we love this. We're here. Thank you for giving some great conversation tonight, questions, thoughts. We love this as much as you do with the Hawks. Number one on the ladder. Probably none of us expected this, but we have a lot of friends helping us. So Base Compression, one of those organizations Base Compression gear designed to aid your performance and, importantly, your recovery. Base men's compression tights will stay cooler, offer muscle support, recovery benefits for your training and game day activities. Also got a lot of gear for women and the kids. So jump on Base Compression, check out talkinghawks.com if you want to get some a 20% discount. Feature their details as in some of our articles. So we want to look after the Talking Hawks fans. A little bit of that will come to us to help us out. But Hawks fans, been amazing. We are, look, you should be shouting from the rooftops. Didn't Sammy smile? Just set the tone in some of the pictures that we saw.
Yeah, and again, I talked about the generational gap that and the positive reinforcement. We've touched on all that, and there's, you do good. There's probably a less childish way to say that, but you do good when you feel good. That's just it. That's just a simple principle of life, and no matter what, and no matter who, and there is no second of the day that Clarko is not a Hawthorn immortal and a Hawthorn legend. But when even the great Lee Matthews comes out and says that 10 to 12 years, a fresh voice is needed, everyone responds. All 3 new coaches, and Michael Voss, Ash Hansen, that combination, they're 2-0. Craig McRae, they're 2-0. We're 2-0. There is no doubt that a fresh voice works, and then it's up to there where we go from here. We need to be absolutely ecstatic about our wins, and we need to take things away from the losses. So, Hawks fans, I know that we can be a pretty pessimistic bunch sometimes, but we need to enjoy this for as long as we can and for as hard as we can. It was amazing.
Yep. Well, this year we might enjoy some of it with some of you. Ben, you're obviously keen. So we looking at game day meetups. We didn't get too many of you responding to us to jump on talkinghawks.com, drop your details in and let us know. We wanted to send out a survey. So sadly, we didn't get enough response to warrant a survey, but very keen to do some game day meetups and understand the demand. Might even be some interstaters because we love connecting the Hawks fans from around the world. Sadly, Hawks don't play in other countries, but if you want to do an international trip, maybe we can put it to Justin Reeves and we'll see. But
imagine the Talking Hawks rocking up in Vegas. Oh boy, I wouldn't know what hit him. But a meetup sounds fantastic, and Matty, you'll be the same. It's really flattering to hear that stuff because from all walks of life, the one thing we got in common is that we bleed for this footy club as fans. So 100%, if we can get something up and going, it's something that we're not going to shirk away from. And even if it's something extraordinary like hiring out a cinema and putting the Hawks game on there, Matty, which would be pretty cool if we could do something like that, or whatever happens. But that's why we've got the best fans in the world, and why we'll cheer on the Hawks until the day we're not here.
Well, Lado was here with us earlier. Part of what Talking Hawks do is we get some of the former players. So if you're keen to connect, we might be able to organise a former player at some of these events. And if you're keen, please, we need to know. We can't just do this off the cuff and organise this. It won't be a big session where it's all about connecting with the fans and taking from an online conversation to an offline conversation, and then we'll go and probably enjoy some Hawks and go and talk a bit more. So if we can get a former player or two involved, and you're keen for that, let us know. We'd love to do some more of that and do it in person, and we might just organise some rooms off to the side wherever we can. So if you're keen, we need to know. We'll also be sponsoring Denver and Jai again. There's a couple of spots, so we need some dollars, ching ching, in the cup. Just passing the hat around. So jump in, let us know. Thanks for joining us tonight. That is all. We'll be back on, what have we got? Wednesday night. We won't clash with the footy for the big Carlton Hawthorn preview. So let's go Hawks. And we'll catch you then. Thanks, Daz.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, everyone. Go the Hawks. Got to enjoy this one.